I just want to make sure I'm right. It's Mr. Urquidi? Is that pronounced correct? Okay. What strengths would you bring to the position, and how would those strengths support the role you have just described?
I have some experience as an assistant in a supportive role in terms of applying administrative policy. I have some strengths in verbal communication and in written communication, and in making presentment of quantitative ideas or approaches to the compliance of policy and making some suggestions, although the policy makers or trustees or board of oversight ultimately has the authority in terms of making a decision.
Okay.
All right. Next question. How does what you did in your past jobs prepare you for the position of treasurer collector?
I've served briefly as an investment officer with the County of San Diego. Started to get, I got some government training on cash management and in terms of investing the short duration cash management of the municipal bonds and overnight bonds in compliance, 100% compliance with the policy of the county. I also have investment experience with regards to oversight of investments on the public side rather than on the government side. So I have more than 5 years of experience. That I was a general securities analyst for approximately 2 years, both on the debt side and although I was dedicated to the equity side. So I have some understanding of the basic settlement process and what's a reasonable settlement process with regards to the bond, also a reasonable settlement process with regards to generalized equities.
Okay, thank you. Question number 6, please.
Okay. Could you give us an example during your employment history of when you had to think outside of the box?
Thinking outside of the box. Sure. Having to make a decision with regards to some petty cash, whether to wait for a director when we're doing a corporate-wide travel, or paying out of my own pocket. I decided in that particular situation to pay out of pocket. Simple things like an upgrade to a hotel or even a travel and expense account going past per diem. Even though it's a more expensive area, I'd rather be compliant to the overall policy and make sure that the department and the person that I report to, that we exceed the statutory or the internal policies in terms of travel and per diem. So I'd rather pay out of pocket and get reimbursed afterwards, if at all.
All right, thank you. Matt, number 7 for you. You're muted.
All right. I made it through about a meeting and a half without doing that. Mr. Urquidi, please describe your familiarity with Mass General Law statutes pertaining to municipal finance.
I have some familiarity with them. Unfortunately, I went through an 8-year divorce. So I got very familiar with MCLE, Massachusetts. There are sort of some compendiums with regards to statute as applied to municipal finance on the pension side. So there are some specific statutes pertaining to that in terms of developing a quadro and the administration of benefits to public employees, which I believe is one of the specific responsibilities in this particular position. So I have some understanding of that, and then to try to resolve some of those, either on a domestic relations order, quadro, the alimony aspect of making sure that there is sufficient funding in the revolver to make payment for that. Obviously, usually 3 months in advance, child support, those types of issues. So I've sort of had to pick that up as pertaining to the administration of benefits.
Thank you.
Next question. This is kind of a three-part question, so I'll read it through once, and then you can go question by question. Describe your work habits, work style, and your ideal work environment. What type of tasks motivate you and why? And what are some tasks in your current job that you do particularly well? If you start with your describing your work habits, work style, and your ideal work environment.
Sure, my work habits, I'm very detail-oriented. I'm very perseverant. I will find a solution or a series of solutions to table. I also like to work projects or issues with a group, and I like to touch base with each person as a stakeholder in a particular group. So those are my work habits on a tripartite basis. An ideal work environment would be sort of a corporate environment, a corporate staff environment, or a structured government environment. Those are, I believe, the kind of work environments that I do well with. In terms of current structure and current position, due to the litigation that we just completed approximately during the most recent 8 years, unfortunately, I haven't been in a full-time position. I have been available as a consultant with Robert Half, although I haven't had a most recent opportunity to work in the Treasury or a director-level human resources administration role. So I haven't had that opportunity on the mid-level corporate or mid-level government position.
Okay. Dylan, question number 9, please.
Could you tell us about something that you failed at and how you handled that failure?
Sure. I was a candidate for CFA level 3, and this was many, many years ago. And I had taken the exam. It was the second time I had taken the examination for the CFA. And unfortunately, I was sanctioned. And I was sanctioned for having my pencil on the examination booklet for more than 3 seconds. Now, when I contacted the oversight board in Charlottesville, Virginia, to see if I could get the exam process, they explained to me that it would be a very long process, and it might not be a proper or good thing to get to know some of the board persons there in Charlottesville with a complaint with regard to the proctoring of the exam. However, when the ombudsman of the CFA Institute contacted the proctor, they changed the testimony from, rather than having a 1 second pencil on the exam, it was a pen, it was for 3 seconds. So it's something that I haven't really picked up on again. I just found that a little bit difficult to believe, particularly since the proctors that I was sitting in front of sort of did not agree with that particular finding at that particular time. So it was something that I failed at, but it was something that was really completely and utterly out of my control.
Okay. Matt, you'll have question number 10.
Mr. Quiddy. Oh, I probably did it again, didn't I? Okay. All right. I'm still unmuted. Can you give us an example of your ability to manage or supervise others?
I've done it once with an executive assistant. We did a company-wide project with CareW back in, this was quite a while ago, and they're still in the Fortune 500, and on the aerospace side and the automotive side, and we did a company-wide total quality management audit, operational audit, was the predominant focus. So I really had to handle the paperwork and handle the oversight of the executive assistant, which wasn't as easy for me since I was only about 29 years old, and the executive assistant, she had much more experience. She was in her late 40s, early 50s, and really had, she had a darling of a relationship with some of the other executive assistants at the corporate office. So it was really something to learn and sort of to work with the person to accept some of their guidance, and also how to get some training from her and managing her in terms of sort of being sounding board and to make sure that the working relationship was reasonable with other groups that may not necessarily have been as energetic about the company-wide audit on the quality side.
Okay, thank you. The next question will be describe your conflict resolution skills. How would you handle a confrontation, for example, with a subordinate, with a different board member, or with a supervisor?
Typically, again, I follow policies. So I've been trained. I was trained with IBM on some of the employee relations and compensation. So we have an open door policy with regard to subordinates, lateral, and those in trustee or decision making roles. So usually, if there's an issue, usually that's stable to human resources, employee relations, if that exists. I found here in Massachusetts many times that does not exist. So sometimes there's a suggestion box, or we just check in with the employees if they have any kind of input or anything that they would like to resolve. And then I would take that, sort of do a write-up, and then go to the, let's say the town administrator in this case, to sort of get some understanding and some grounding as to who to go to next. I understand that in some small municipal governments, there isn't really a written policy per se. Now, with regards to superiors, I like to preempt problems as much as possible. So anyone that I work with laterally, I like to get input, and I do what's called, I pre-work a project. This is part of the aerospace side in terms of a Tiger team, in terms of really trying to get an understanding and stakeholders first on board, and then to delineate out what the issues are for each stakeholder, and then try to move forward with whatever might be my objective. Hopefully there is some synchronicity and overlap with the other departments so that we have a mutually reasonable scenario with regards to output. That's how I work. I pre-work projects before I make a presentation or before I make a suggestion.
Okay, thank you. Dylan, question 13, please.
What is the most difficult thing you have had to do in the performance of your job?
I would say probably riffing people, reduction in force. It was the most difficult thing I've ever had to do as a young person learning how to administer in a corporation. However, it was eye-opening in the sense that everyone had their own story, and that story seemed reasonable in terms of complaints. It seemed reasonable in terms of employee relations, human resources issues, or just plain feelings. But when we got through each of the reduction in force, and this is on the satellite side, it was really tough because I ended up having to sort of do a little hand-holding of a person that he had to fire himself. He could no longer find a cost center, and he had to leave Southern California because there wasn't enough opportunities at that time on the aerospace side. So even though everybody else's complaints, they might have been sort of reasonable. Maybe it was an issue of candor. Maybe it was an issue of descriptive oversight. Maybe it was an issue of not being recognized, etc. It's very, very difficult because we weren't able to find something else for him in Southern California. And again, that's difficult. And then also currently finding here in Boston or Massachusetts the number of non-competes. And I do take those very, very seriously. I've been through a process that's very, very difficult. And those non-competes can be explicit or implicit within the judiciary process here in Massachusetts. So those have been two very different type of scenarios. One, in terms of being the person to riff other people, and then the complaints that result from that, and then the reality that the person that was signing off on that was also, he was firing himself. There was no more room. So here, I've been through a similar process. I've had a number of positions that they were dream positions, but for whatever reason, I ended up having a non-compete, and then I'm on the street again. So I just found that somewhat difficult to deal with.
Thank you. Matt, you're up with question 15, please.
Mr. Yaquiti, please describe your experience and approach to preparing for audits. end of year reporting?
Sure. I'm going to go on the side of the TQM side and the auditor side. I accompanied one of the auditors on a accounting audit. I think that was in the automotive side, and I used to socialize mostly with auditors in Cleveland. So we would talk about at least getting to know the person at first, and then that helped to prepare me to allow me to speak with the controllers and the master schedulers. So what we do is we might get some forensics, I call them forensics, in terms of the numbers that we get from a controller, a local divisional controller, and then we have to sort of check that with regards to sales, with regards to the motions in shipping and receiving, and then in terms of quality control. So that was one thing that was sort of difficult to prepare because the salesperson information usually, at least what we found, at least in half the time, they was very different from what the controller would have. And the only person that I found that I could really trust on that was the master scheduler. They're the ones that really have more reasonable information in terms of the actual operations. It's a very, very complicated position. So I really would depend on them a lot more so that I could get an understanding of the components of the inventory and what was actually being used. And from that, we found that there was a lot of rework that was occurring. So in terms of manufacturing, it's really the master scheduler that's involved in that. Now, you might ask yourself, well, how does that relate to a municipal group here? I was looking at your structure, and it seems to me that the town accountant is really more like the controller. So in terms of some of the information, that would be probably a key person to work with from whomever is granted the position on the tax collection and treasury administration side. That would be sort of the go-to person on the audit. And I also noticed from the structure, having reviewed some of the budget and the notes, that that's indeed what you have at the moment. You have the auditors directly underneath the town accountant.
Okay. Thank you.
Next question. Please tell us about your computer skills and experience with Vadar, Excel, Word, and any other programs you may be familiar with.
Well, I would say currently I'm in intermediate with Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. Younger people today, fresh out of business school or fresh out of some of the technical schools, they're more advanced. They might be able to do something in terms of recording a shell script. I don't do that. So I just want to make absolutely clear for the record, I do not program. I understand some Java, which is basically some of the scripting in terms of what the entities are or the objects are. So I could sort of get a feel as to what relational database the data is being pulled from. But I do not program in any sense of the word. I just want to make absolutely clear about that. What I can do, I've had some projects, and I'm very happy to note that I really, really like the data architecture of one of the large investment companies here. I really like redundancy in terms of computer systems, and I just like the security of the way they did the data layout. Very secure. And I worked as a business analyst to try to put together the flowing of the data and to get an understanding of what each relational database did. And then the timing of mitigating what I call like a security download so that the historical information is stable. I really depend on that, particularly with audit, or I don't know how far back the municipal side might require, but in terms of, I do know for credit rating, sometimes I'll go back 3 to 5 years, depending on where there might have been a blip in the data. So that's where I'm at on that in terms of information technology. I have some understanding of how to download and to run some quality control data batching to make sure that the data is downloaded correctly. I can install my own printers and softwares, things of that nature. On the basic level, I do not know how to install administrative rights necessarily, and I don't necessarily know how to install an administrative portal to whatever the distributed software is. I don't know how to do that necessarily.
Okay. Dylan, I'll give you question 17, then Matt, you can do the 18 follow-up after.
Okay. How does this job fit in with your overall career goals?
Well, my overall career goals is to be a director of finance and administration. And I've been working towards, for example, when I left California, I thought I wanted to manage like a seafarer's pension. I remember I left and I left near the San Francisco. And I thought I wanted to work on the investment side. There was Van Kempen and Merit Securities, and I wanted to help manage a union pension. Now, looking back retrospectively, and having had some of that experience, that's a little too that's too risky, I guess, for a person. And I've always wanted to take those steps towards the Treasury and the Treasury and Finance Administration side. I did do some work with the Treasurer of Merrill Lynch. While I was a Human Resources Associate, I was assigned to the Compensation Group. Luckily, I got that position through a person that was a local graduate of where I had grown up in Salinas. And he allowed me the opportunity to work with him on the corporate compensation administration side, and we did the first broadband. And that was quite significant because, as you are aware, the SG&A is the largest component of most service companies, particularly in financial services. And I would conjecture that would be similar with regards to the administration of municipal employment. So my goal has always been to become a director of finance administration or a nonprofit CFO, or working to manage the pensions and or the Treasury administration of those pensions.
Okay. Matt, up to you.
Thank you, Mr. Uquity. At this point, is there anything else you would like us to know about you that will aid us in making our decision? And do you have any questions for us?
Well, I think I have a couple of questions actually. These are a little bit more like specific. Could you give me sort of a feel for the town of Barre in terms of where you are financially? Are you sort of is the financial health there? Could you just give me sort of a feel as an open-ended question on the financing and the administrative posturement of the town?
Go ahead, Matt. Your question?
I'll at least give you my perspective. Obviously, we are a board of selectmen, so there's 3 different views on this. But I do believe that in the last couple of years, we've done a good job strengthening our stabilization fund, strengthening our level of free cash that we're rolling year to year, as well as trying to build up a proper debt ratio. I think we're actually at a pretty good spot, and I do know that prior to the pandemic, our intent was going into fiscal year 21 to start looking at getting our town a bond rating, because we hadn't had one for a while. So we kind of started digging out of that. So I would say that we were making good progress, but we are in a little weird spot with the pandemic to sit here and say how that's truly affected us yet. I think our accountant and treasurer, we had an interim town administrator, as well as our finance committee did a pretty good job trying to respond to the pandemic and creating our FY21 budget, but not knowing the full extent of that yet, because it's obviously not over regarding the pandemic. I'd say we're pretty good, but I'm sure someone could look in there and say, well, this could have been better, but I think you might find that anywhere you go.
All right. If you would be so kind to comment, what's the size of the town population, tax-paying population, and the total population?
Total population is just over 5,000. I think the tax-paying population, I'm not sure. Maybe you guys can help me, but I think we're closer to like 3,000.
I think a little over that, but yeah.
Yes. So we're right around there.
And also, like, philosophically, I've resided here in Norfolk County for 18, 19 years. I'm not a big fan of overrides. I don't believe in them. I like things the way they are, is one way of putting it. So I'm not really a big fan of overrides. That being said, is the tax collection stable? And do you have sort of like a general obligation bond? Is that what you have currently?
Could you clarify general obligation bond so I better understand that?
Sure, absolutely. Are these bonds that are applied towards services for the townspeople, or is this a bond that's applied more towards the infrastructure of the town?
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, generally we also don't do overrides. We have one debt exclusion we had done several years ago, but we don't do like the Prop 2.5 override. We stay within the standard budget process as the tax levy increases naturally. And when it comes to our bonds, which primarily we're doing bans because of as we search for our bond rating, but they're primarily used for capital and infrastructure upgrades, not operational expenses.
Now, are you getting a match? Or I know it's very, very important here, the roads. It's like incredibly important, the asphalt and having that sort of the roads being. I'm not exactly sure how that's financed. Maybe the town director of finance. Are you applying any of that bond towards that? Is that what you're really towards the construction side, or is it more towards the pensions of the town? Or
Usually it's good. Go ahead. You can.
I would just, our roads are primarily, we use the Chapter 90 funding from the state, and we rarely add more money to that. But what we will do at times, and we do have a few articles over various years where we have put, say $10,000 to upgrade sidewalks, because those cannot be funded via Chapter 90 funds. So what we try to do is put incremental amounts in every few years so that there's an actual, it's almost like a standing balance that can be used when we have a larger sidewalk project to do, or similar to that. Other things would be our town assessment. So we put a little money in every year, so by the time the third or the fifth year comes around where we got to complete a town assessment, we have the money there and we don't have to come up with it in 1 year. Then we do buy like new ambulances. So that's generally where that goes. I hope that answers your question.
I think so. That's topically.
We're gonna
And what about?
We're going to have to cut you off there and say good evening to you. We do have our next candidate on in 2 minutes. We've got a couple
Understood.
minutes
All
already
right.
to see some questions, but thank you for attending this evening. And I'm not sure how quickly we'll make a decision, but I would think within the week for sure, and we'll be letting people know.
Thank you very much for talking with me. Have a good night.
Same to you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Jessica, do we have our next one waiting yet? We don't want them on yet. We've got 2 more minutes. I think those questions are fine the way we read them.
I don't see the next candidate here right now. I know that he had popped on a little early, but I think he realized we were still in the middle of a different interview, so he logged off. So I'm assuming he will be coming back.
I would think so. We'll find out. course, the one we lost and pulled out to one we thought wasn't likely to be really interested in Barre anyways. Not a surprise there. So what do we have to sign in the office right now? We have to actually go sign that warrant. You guys approved the warrant for the meeting, for the elections. So that's in the office to sign.
Correct. That and also the ban that needs to. That's a high priority thing that needs to be sent out because it's so time sensitive.
Is it in there on Sandy's desk now, or
It's in my office on that circle table.
circle table? Okay. I'll try to shoot up tonight and sign it.
I put like arrows on everything or sticky note arrows on everything that you need to sign. There's probably like 15 signatures that are needed. So.
Typical. It's never just one.
Okay, so Alex is here. I'll bring him in.
Right. Thank you. Alex, welcome.
Hello, how you doing?
Hi, Alex. My name's Greg O'Sullivan. I'm chairman of the board. We also have Matt Urban and Dylan Clark, our other selectman, with us, with Jessica, who is our administrator. We're broadcasting live on Zoom and on YouTube right now, and this will play back later on our local cable station.
Okay, excellent.
All right. That being said, we do have a series of questions for you. I think we wound up with about 15 questions. When I find my list again, I'll ask you your first question.
Can everybody hear me all right? Everybody see me all right?
Can't see you yet.
Okay.
I hear you.
You might find there's usually a little icon for your camera somewhere.
Yeah. Let's see. Huh. Let's see if I can flip it over sideways.
I can't offer much assistance with this. So.
I can hear everybody. I don't see the camera. My screen does turn there. No, that's not going to work.
Mine shows up in the bottom left next to a microphone icon to mute it or.
Yeah, it says Greg Sullivan. I do see that when you talk.
You have him as a participant, Jessica?
Yes.
He's in it as an actual participant. So.
I'll be able to turn on his camera.
Let me see if I can. I am on an iPad right now. Let me see if my iPhone will be different. I do apologize for this.
It's all right. We can ask the questions without the camera on. That's fine.
Okay.
Because we do want to get moving. We're on a time schedule here. Someone's got Luke going.
I think his iPhone and iPad are talking to each
We
other.
got to shut one of them off.
Yeah, I did shut one off. I do not see the option to have the camera going, however.
Well, let's get going then, Alex, if we can.
Okay.
I'll ask you your first question. Please tell us why you're interested in becoming the next treasurer collector here in Barre, and what makes Barre a community that you'd like to work in.
Absolutely. This is a position not a position, but a career path that I've been wanting to take for a while now. And I am ready for the next step. And I think that being in a town community of that size will definitely benefit me, coming from a larger city in that way of where I was from Lowell with 110,000. And it would allow me to focus my abilities on a smaller area so I could actually expand them. That is my main focus for going to that town. And that's something I can feel like I can benefit the town as long as myself.
All right. Thank you. And Dylan will bring your next question.
Good evening, Mr. Haggerty.
How you doing?
Good. Could you please describe your understanding of the role of a treasurer collector within a community or within a municipality?
Yes, absolutely. It's mostly what the collector side is keeping track and making sure that everything is paid and keeping track of all the payments. Also reaching out to the community and making sure that they are aware of how to pay their taxes, how to communicate with them, and how to relate back to us so they are knowledgeable of what they do have to do in their own responsibilities. I I think that is a huge responsibility, and that is something that I noticed in my prior jobs where a lot of people were not informed of how to pay their city taxes or certain things with online systems. So I would definitely be there for the residents to assist them in anything, any way they need it. With the treasurer's side, it is keeping track of all the monies that come in. Whether you're working with the other departments, with their payments into the system, or keeping track of the funds for the city. Also for filling out letters, anything anything needs to be done, communicating with the state revenues.
Very good.
Also, I believe that the treasurer collector there is responsible for payroll in your city, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that would also be one of the responsibilities to make sure that is there. I've seen that go differently in other cities. I've seen auditors take care of that. I've seen also the treasurer also take care of that, and I also know that how important that is to have that on track at all times. I've seen things go wrong with that, and that's something that would have a huge focus on my part also.
Okay, thank you. Matt, question number 3, please.
Mr. Haggerty, what strengths would you bring to the position, and how would these strengths support the role you have just described?
I think my main strength is my communication with the residents. I have very good people skills with everybody that comes into the office. It's one of my strong points, keeping them informed of what they do, especially when they're having issues. Say if they need to go into tax title or a tax date, keeping them informed, keeping them how to get out of it, and talking to them and being there for them to answer any questions possible. That is definitely my strength in communicating with them. That is, I feel, one of the huge benefits of a city and town, as the people actually do run the city and town. They are the people that matter the most. That's what I look for, and that's what they need.
Thank you.
Very good. How does what you did in your past job or jobs prepare you for the position of collector and treasurer?
Sure. A lot of my past jobs now, I've been munis, so I'm very strong with my munis capabilities. I believe you do use munis, correct?
Say that again?
Do you use munis software system?
Vadar?
Vadar. Okay. I am not familiar with Vadar, but I do use munis quite often. And my abilities to keep the revenue on track right there with monitoring and making sure all the reports are correct. That is there. Also, with the collections side, that is basically my strong point. And with my past jobs, making sure that my staff was knowledgeable with their job to keep it going and keep it on track. That is my main strong point, was keeping books, keeping track of everything, keeping accurate records. And, being prepared for any questions that came about, especially with, I had 6 people that worked for me, so making them being well prepared for any situation that came their way, and also being available. I knew I had to be available at all times for them, for the customers.
Excellent, thank you. Get this straight here. Dylan, with question 6, please.
Sure. Mr. Haggerty, give an example during your employment history when you had to think outside of the box.
Okay, thinking outside of the box, I would have to say that's always an interesting one, but thinking outside of the box is changing the software system. We had collections that were not operating correctly, so we had to immediately adapt, and we had to make a system set up for the taxpayers to be able to pay. It was not part of our normal system, and we needed to make sure that they were able to communicate with us and get their payments in on time, and we had to come up with another solution. So with our software system, we were using Invoice Cloud at the time, and we had to upload the files so they could get their payments in, and that was one of the things where I had to think outside of the box, because it was not part of our normal collection system. I've also had to restructure complete files for accounting keeping reasons.
All right, thank you. Matt, you have question number 7.
please describe your familiarity with Mass General Law statutes pertaining to municipal finance in Massachusetts?
With my knowledge from there, I have been going to the Mass Treasurer and Collector Association school out in Worcester. Amherst, and I have been going there. And you know, a lot of the laws you have to keep track on. There is many different times where I've had to look them up right on the spot. You know, it's all about experience. You can go ahead and read the whole book and get familiar with everything. But a lot of the times I've noticed that I have to go back and focus on them and read them specifically because they are very important to know. Especially with tax statements. All those general laws, you can easily run into one situation where you could rule the whole tax title account and those people, the city would lose their money and their opportunity to collect on that. One of the things, especially with advertising, when you do the advertising for tax takings, is if you don't include all the names in the deed or all the trustees, you could have a bad tax taking. So that's an example of that situation. So it's always important to have everything correct and along those lines with the general laws. I have no problem or issue looking up everything I need to look up. I've done that multiple times. So in that situation, I do believe every specific area has its own situation where you do need to look things up constantly. And you need to be on top of things.
Okay, thank you. If you would, Alex, please describe your work habits, work style, and an ideal work environment. And to follow it up with what type of tasks motivate you and why, and what sort of tasks you do at your current job you do very exceptionally well.
Okay. So with the task, with the perfect ideal environment for myself is having everybody collectively and being in a happy environment themselves. I'm a big believer in the people around you, that everybody communicates together, everybody's there, everybody happy, coming to work. And, you do thrive off of who you work with. I think that is a huge issue, or not an issue, but a huge thing that you do need to accomplish within an office. I think one of the other ideal situations would be inter-office communication, whether it's the treasurer collector's office communicating with the assessor's office or the auditor's office or the clerk's office, any different office, whether it's the billing department. I have worked in environments where the communication is lacking, and I think that makes it difficult and stressful for everybody. So that is one of the ideal situations I do look for in a town or city hall. That is crucial, basically, to get along with everybody and make sure that what you expect out of them and what they expect out of you. So communication is huge in that part. Now, I believe the second part was with the tasks.
And what type of tasks motivate you and why? And what tasks do you do particularly well right now in your current job?
So, particularly well, tasks that I am doing would have to be relating with the customers. I can't emphasize enough about how crucial that is, and I believe that helps you guys out also as being a committee board, where the better I handle my job, the less that you have to deal with. And I'm kind of a believer in, if you don't have to speak to me about any issues, then that means I'm doing my job well. And that is something that also motivates me, because it's huge. It's definitely crucial to have that going on. Now with tasks also is monitoring. That was one of the big things with me, having the staff underneath me and having them trained properly, they could handle the load work. And I was basically monitoring and keeping track and going through the records and making sure everything was up to date, making sure there were no errors in the software. With the account numbers, especially changing over fiscal year, when you change all the charge codes over. That's also important to make sure everything is online and everything is running properly. And that was something where I did catch a lot of mistakes that were happening. Not mistakes by a single person, but when something would go awry and something would change, I had to be there on top of it to fix it. So that was one of my main things. And for motivation, it would be make sure everybody's happy at the workplace and make sure the residents are also comfortable and knowledgeable. That's what motivates me. Make sure they're okay. Make sure they know what's going on, and make sure everybody around me knows what's going on.
Okay, thank you. Dylan, question 9.
Okay, flip side. Can you tell us about something in your professional life that you failed at and how you handled that?
Something that I failed at in my professional life. Well, that's a tough question where you don't want to say you failed at something. I will say that. I would say, if anything, it kept me to learn more. I don't think anybody likes to completely admit they failed. So somewhere that I have had issues with, or something that I failed at in the past, which I've learned from my mistakes or errors, would be not completely communicating. That would be something that I've always worked on, that I noticed younger, early on in my career, where I expected something and I didn't get the results I wanted to. And I realized maybe that was because I wasn't clearly speaking of what I expected. So anytime now, I always make sure that I do ask, do you understand? Do you know what I'm looking for? And making sure that person is aware, and ask them questions so I can get a response to make sure they're on key. I have asked people to do things and they didn't come out correctly. And I think I took that upon myself as not completely explaining the situation or completely what I was expecting.
Okay,
Thank you.
Matt, you're up with question 10 now.
Mr. Haggerty, can you give us an example of your ability to manage or supervise others?
An example. One of the big things with examples, I would have to say, especially with unions, is when people request vacation time. I had to make sure everybody got along. I believe I had 5 mothers in the office with all children, and to make sure that they all got along and had the time that they needed. So a lot of my focus did go on that in my prior job, and make sure that they were all happy. That was one of the biggest issues. And you couldn't always please everybody. I did also realize that some people, weren't always happy with the situation, but I made sure that that would come around. In the next area, they would also get that vacation time. That was one of the biggest issues that I would say that I had to deal with within our workforce, with the people I was managing. But as to go with training, that was one of my strong points with my employees. Everybody knew how to run the system. Everybody knew how to operate. And I also wanted to make sure that they were prepared for things that weren't in the normal. So if a customer did come in that was irate or something of that matter, I wanted to make sure that they were there prepared and they kept calm. And that's where I would be available. And I always wanted them to be able to ask questions. I always wanted them to feel like they could come and talk to me. Also, if they did make an error, I also wanted them to be able to tell me. I never wanted somebody to hide anything from me. If they hide something from me, then I can't control it. I can't help them. So I always like an open relationship and honesty with my work staff.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Please describe your conflict resolution skills. How would you handle confrontation with a subordinate, with a supervisor, or with the public?
Okay. With the supervisor, I'll start with that. That is something that I would never ever want a conflict happening with that. I've always tried to talk to the person first, especially with the supervisor. I would always go up to them. I wouldn't go around or go complain or talk badly about them. I would do that head on. I would say, is there something that I am doing wrong, and how can I help this? Because you are my supervisor. If you aren't happy with my work, can we talk this out, and can you please explain to me what you're expecting and how I can better that? They are my supervisor in that area. Now, with a subordinate, that is obviously a little more different, where you have to make sure that they are aware of what they did wrong. Depending on the level, whether it's, I've dealt with everything from their collections being off or the cash store being off. That is something that I state, and I do have strict regulations of how they would collect their money, and I would go through those regulations. Okay, what is here? What is that? Was it their error? I would completely go through the list of how the error happened, how, what is going on with them and why this did happen. I would not jump to conclusion. I would give them a chance to explain themselves and talk to them, and I would go from there. I think every situation with the subordinate has its own circumstances. I do not think that is cut and dry at all, and I wouldn't want to jump to a conclusion. So I would definitely give them a chance to explain themselves and come and talk to me. And from there, I would have to make a decision. It's depending on their past and prior experience or issues prior, that would also play a role. and I would give them a chance. Now, with a customer or a resident, that is also an area where that's circumstantial. I've had people come in and completely yell at me, completely yell at my staff, and they have been on a line where that customer was irate for whatever reason. With that, I would take them and talk to them. I would let them display their anger or their questions or what was upsetting them. I would let them speak first and let them go. And my first resolution would be, how can we resolve this? It would be like, how can I help? It would be my first thing, and I would explain to them. But you also have to be strict too at the same time, because these are regulations and rules and state laws that, as a treasurer collector, that you have to follow. So that is always what I do want to get by. I want to make sure they're aware of the state law, state regulations, that I am operating under what I need to operate by. I would also explain to them and help them out so that issue wouldn't occur later down on the road. I've seen it with excise taxes. I've seen it with tax takings. Just a simple late charge. I don't know what your late charges and your excise bills are, but a simple late fee charge. I've seen people come in $5 fee and just completely furious. To be honest with you, which is understandable. They're there. I mean, they paid late, and I'd have to talk to them. It's just listening to them and let them speaking and listening and let them airing out their frustration with the customers.
Okay, thank you. Dylan, question 13.
Okay. What is the most difficult thing you've had to do in the performance of your job?
Oh, that writing up a score, or that is one of the largest things, because when you do work, it's not the issue of writing them up or that challenge. I didn't have a problem writing them up, but when you work with somebody in an office for day in and day out, you want to make sure that they're doing their job. You want to make sure everything's correct. Sometimes you have to take that precaution, though. I mean, you have to do your own job and make sure they realize you have to do your own job. But I've never liked doing that. I've also had a fire report. That is not something that I've ever liked doing. It's something that you have to do when the situation calls for it, but it is not something that I've ever liked to do. That by far the most difficult thing.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Matt, question 15 is for you.
Mr. Haggerty, I know just mentioned that I know we're getting short on time for this scheduled interview. We got about maybe 4 more questions, so I'll be quick and then maybe you be quick. Please describe your experience and approach to preparing for audits, end-of-year reporting.
End-of-year reporting, I believe it makes it easier for me to do end-of-year reporting, to keep on track and be prepared for when it comes down to. I typically run the reports that I need to very far prior to when it's actually called for. Speaking and communicating with the auditors what they're going to be expecting also. Looking at past reports, getting those numbers already, matching those numbers for prior years to make sure that I'm actually doing correct. So if I take the prior year audit report or information I was given at that time, and I can match those reports, that means I have the system in place. And so then I will run it for the current year. And I've always done it on a quarterly basis as much as possible. Sometimes it'll be a little later because for the quarterly basis, because sometimes you get bogged down by the work, but I like to run it as quickly and often as possible to keep on track of it. That has always helped me. I rushing at the last minute, putting out the numbers that you don't want and you're not sure of. I do not like that at all.
Thank you.
Good. We've already touched on this. You touched on this a little bit. Tell us about your computer skills and experience with Vadar, Excel, Word, or other programs.
So Excel and Word, all those programs, I've never had an issue with. Those are very simple for me. I mean, there's always certain things that come along with those that you can go pretty quickly on figuring out, especially with the new software updates that come out where they may change something. But that's something I've used throughout my entire career. With Vadar, I imagine I don't have experience with Vadar. I do have strong experience with Munis, which is still basic a government accounting system or a municipality government system, and I was able to run on that, catch up very quickly. Revenue reports, every collection reports, any type of report, I was able to run on that. especially with tax takings, which was, I did do a lot of tax takings. I think that's why I keep bringing it up. But it's that type of software and system that is something that I can strongly adapt to, especially coming from Unis, I believe.
Okay, thank you. Dylan?
Okay. How does this job fit in with your overall career goals?
Being a treasurer collector is my ultimate goal. This is something that I definitely want to do. This is something that I want to go on there and eventually maybe go into a little more depth with finance and administration. But right now, this is my career goal right now, to become part of this. It's something that ever since I got into a municipality, ever since I started into a treasurer collector's office, that was my goal. So, and to keep adapting, keep going forward, that is something that I'll look down the line. But this right now is my current goal right now.
Excellent.
Matt, I think we have about 5 minutes. So you can get into your question.
Okay, I'll keep it real simple, Mr. Haggerty. Is there anything you would like to know from us? Or is there anything specific about yourself you want to let us know about that we didn't ask about?
If you did, I don't know if I didn't ask about. I think we did clear it. But one of my main things that I do like working with the residents. I do like being in a municipality. I do like working in town finance and speaking to the residents. That is something that I've always liked doing. My first city that I worked with Uber, and that is where I grew up with. Everybody that came into that office, I knew on a personal basis outside, which also it did make the job difficult, but it also taught me how to communicate better with them and speak with them because I was very honest with them. It's something that ever since I've got into this, I have enjoyed. I've also enjoyed working with the other talent, with the other departments in this situation. I do enjoy it. It's not always easy, but that is a job. No job is supposed to be easy at all times. As opposed to any questions that I have for you guys. So you guys are the board, just 3 of you, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any issues prior that in the treasurer collector's office that I am unaware of that you guys are looking to focus on?
I wouldn't say we have any issues we're looking to focus on. When we took office, we had, no bond rating. Then we're still not working towards a bond rating. We didn't like our position in our stabilization account, and we struggle every year to make a budget and get ends to meet. And we think that's all pretty well under control. We got a good handle on those things. As far as issues in the department, we were having timely issues with the audit in the past, and that was resolved between the departments talking and getting some more assistance in crucial times when crunching, getting things done. But I don't think we have any major issues.
Okay.
That's different to say.
So that is something right here.
We'll see if they have anything different to say. I don't know if I've missed something either one wants to add to.
No, I would say not at this time. I mean, our last, I don't know, I've been on the board for about 4 years, and when I first got on, we were still digging out of some accounting issues that had happened years ago. And they really started digging in and cleaning it up and catching up. But that was a big job, and I think it's primarily done, but you may come in and realize there are a couple line items you're still trying to chase to figure out how something was just not done, say, 10, 15 years ago, and we haven't found the record to answer that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know enough about it. I'm just trying to give you a general idea that it seems like there are a couple historical things that we're still trying to clean up.
Okay.
And our audit has very few concerns on it, nothing major, but you'd be able to see that if you were working as the treasurer. Nothing alarming here.
Okay. With that being said, I would say one of my things that I would focus on is making sure you guys get timely reports. Whatever you're looking for, make sure I have those numbers up to date. So if you are looking for something, that is something that I would focus on. Absolutely.
We have one minute till our next candidate is due in, so I'm going to have to say good evening to you, Alex, and thank you for joining us.
Okay.
And we'll be hopefully making a decision within the week and getting back to people.
Okay. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to interview for the position. And it was nice meeting all of you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Jessica, is Lisa in the wings waiting?
She is not, but her interview starts at 7:45.
Okay, good. We get back on track on time there. That's good. All right.
I got a call from Fred, and he will be here tonight as well.
Okay. That should be pretty well timed. It looks like we're sticking pretty good at 30 minutes of these, so we should be able to be probably between 7:10 and 8:10 and 10:15 for Fred. Should be well timed. Right, I'm going to shut my camera off a minute, have another sip of my juice. I'll be back in just 2 or 3. Touch base with my daughter, make sure my granddaughter doesn't come running in. Yep, and I see Lisa is here.
Yes, I am here. Can you see me?
All right. Well, Lisa, welcome. My name is Greg O'Sullivan, Chairman of the Board. We have Matt Urban, Vice Chair, and Dylan Clark, our clerk, along with Jessica Sizer, our town administrator. We're broadcasting on Zoom, obviously, right now, as well as live on YouTube, and this will be broadcast later on our local cable access channel here in Barre.
Okay.
With that, we're going to get right into this. We have a series of 15 questions we'll begin with, and we'll get back to you if we have time in the end and entertain your questions.
Very good.
Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Are you
All
able
right.
to see me?
No.
I don't know why
We had that issue with another candidate, so I don't want to waste
Don't
any
worry about
time
it.
trying if we don't
That's
figure
fine.
it out. Okay. So please tell us why you're interested in becoming the next treasurer collector here in Barre and what makes this community you want to work in.
Yes, I absolutely love the job of the treasurer collector. And Barre is very similar to the town of Shirley, where I formerly worked, size-wise, and it really has intrigued me to apply for this and to move forward with it.
Okay. Dylan, question 2.
Good evening, Ms. Gibbons.
Yes.
Please, if you could, describe your understanding of the role of treasurer or collector within a municipality.
Yes, it is to follow all Mass General laws in regards to obviously the collection, the billing side, getting tax bills out, real estate bills, excise, and also the reconciling monthly. I always reconcile weekly with the accountant's office with all accounts receivables, and also I also had the human resources was under me and payroll, so that was also something that was constantly being reconciled weekly.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay. Matt, question 3, please.
Ms. Gibbons,
Yes.
what strengths would you bring to the position, and how would these strengths support the role you have just described?
Strengths. I think that I am a very good team player. I have very good time management skills. I pride myself in my attention to detail. I'm very good with IT things. I did implement the integration with our Vadar software with our accountants. Vadar was currently in my office, and then we added it to the accounting side, so I was part of that implementation. They pretty much know me on a first name basis at Vadar. I think I'm a very quick learner. I'm a friendly, approachable person. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Thank you.
Thank you. How does what you did in your past job of jobs pay you for the position of treasurer collector?
I think it's definitely made me see all sides of the role of treasurer collector. Fortunately, I have 20 years experience in municipality, doing ambulance billing many years ago. So I saw that whole side of it, and then reconciling, and then I moved into the accounting office. So I saw that side of how everything functions. So then I was very fortunate to have that background when I moved to the treasurer collector side, and have that understanding of how important those two offices work together.
Okay, thank you. Dylan, question number 6, please.
Okay, classic interview question. Give us an example during your employment history when you had to think outside the box.
And I had to think outside the box. I would definitely say that was probably one of my first endeavors when I became the treasurer collector. Is tax title was an absolute mess in our town, and I had a tax title auction. I brought in over $350,000 for the town of tax title that had just been sitting there. We had stuff from back in the 1920s. It was pretty bad. I think that was really thinking outside the box for me, because I hadn't done it before, and I really pushed myself, and I learned so much about it, and it helped me a lot in my role.
Very good. Matt, question 7 for you.
Ms. Gibbons, please describe your familiarity with MGL statutes pertaining to municipal finance in Massachusetts.
Yeah. I don't know them by heart. Obviously, there's quite a few of them, but I know that the obvious ones that, as the treasurer collector, that we have to follow with getting bills out in time, and then procedures that we have to follow to do something like a tax taking, and the dates and just everything that goes with that. So I mean, I'm very familiar with it because I use it every day in what I did.
Okay, thank you. Would describe for me, please, your work habits, work style, and ideal work environment. And follow that with what type of tasks that motivate you and why, and something that you're particularly doing well at your job right now.
Okay, so a typical work environment would be to have great relationship with all department heads, to be a team, because all of the offices really have to work together to make everything work because of the assessors and the treasurers and collectors and just everybody, the accounting with the treasurer side, just to make sure there's a great relationship with everybody. Some tasks that I would making sure that all procedures were being followed within the office, and obviously carrying them through according to the Mass General laws. And I'm sorry, what was the end of that question?
Well, that was what tasks motivate you and why, and what tasks are you doing particularly well?
What I do, I think what I do particularly well is I do pride myself with attention to detail. So the constant reconciling, and then if there is an issue, just digging down to find where that problem is and then resolving it. I really think that that's one of my fortes. And I'm always pushing myself to be a better person, and I'm always wanting to learn more. So.
Okay, thank you. Dylan, we'll have question number 9, please.
Okay. Another classic interview question.
Okay.
Can you tell us something that you failed at and how you handle it?
Something that I failed at within my profession?
Sure.
Okay. I would say that I wouldn't say failed, but we had a very outdated payroll software when I first came into the treasurer collector's office, and it was failing quickly, so I had to make a quick decision to implement a new payroll software, and it didn't go so well. It worked. We made it work, and I tried to work with the company to get it to where we needed it, but it just, unfortunately, it didn't work out for us. So on the other side of failing, I think I did a very good job because we did implement another payroll system that is just doing phenomenal for our town.
Okay. Matt, that gives you question 10, please.
Ms. Gibbons, can you give us an example of your ability to manage or supervise others?
Yes, I would say with my implementation of the payroll and adding the Vadar software into my office was definitely a time that I was able to manage and supervise very well, and with different offices, because I was teaching all of the different departments their portion of that software.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Describe your conflict resolution skills, and how would you handle a confrontation with a subordinate, supervisor, and the public?
Okay. How I would handle a conflict is to stay calm, to hear both sides of the story, to see how it could be easily and quickly resolved, to make all parties satisfied, to make sure that, and if they required more information, to make sure that that was available to them.
Okay. And we're looking for conflict with a subordinate and a supervisor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Pretty much the same thing, just to stay calm, to speak to the issue at hand, and just to say my side of things and what I feel, and then their side of things, and then come to a mutual agreement and move on from there. But obviously to make sure that whatever the conflict is being resolved correctly.
Okay, thank you. Dylan, you have question number 13.
Okay. What's the most difficult thing you've had to do in the performance of your job?
I would definitely say that was when I had the typical elderly resident come in and had a tax title account that they were unaware of, and had no money, and they were in that genre. think tax title, that they are going to lose their home, et cetera, and just dealing with that resident and making sure that they understood that that's not our intention, is to take your home. It's to try to resolve the back taxes that are owed on it. And it was heartbreaking to hear some of the stories that I had to listen to with these people. And again, I will add to that, like I said, our tax title was an absolute shambles when I got into that role.
Okay. And question 15, please, Bill.
Ms. Gibbons,
Yes.
please describe your experience and approach to preparing for audits and end-of-year reporting.
Yes. I work very close with our auditors that we have. Actually, throughout the year, I'm working with them. I would make sure that all of the fiscal year accounts payables, accounts receivables, all of the reports for each of the months, all of the bank statements, that everything was in order and ready for them when they come in, and devote time to just giving them the information that they need in the backup when they are in there.
Okay. Now this one's been touched upon quite a bit, so it's almost already been answered, but we'll ask it anyways. Tell us about your computer skills and experience with Vadar, Excel, and Word.
Okay. Well, all Microsoft products I've been using for a good 20 years in my profession with the municipality, in all the different roles that I've had. Obviously, Vadar, I know pretty much inside and out, and as well as different payroll softwares.
Okay, thank you. And Dylan, question 17.
Okay. How does this job fit in with your overall career goals?
I truly love the treasurer collector position and all the aspects of it. Just the number side of it, the budgeting side of it, also the billing side, and the interaction with residents, and the closeness with departments, and it just, all in all, it's been, I'm very fortunate that I went into this position, and I hope to retire in this position. I have been currently going to the Mass Collector Treasurers Association school for the past 3 years, so I would have been able to test this year, but due to COVID, I'm not able to. So I should have my certificate in the next 2 years for both treasurer and collector.
Okay, thank you. Matt, back to you.
All right, Ms. Gibbons, we've kind of asked you a lot of questions. This is our opportunity to give you a chance to tell us something about yourself that we didn't ask, or do you have any specific questions about us or the town of Barre?
Okay. Something you don't know about me, I have, like I had said before, I have 4 children, so I'm very good at multitasking and learning fast. As I had said, I'm a very friendly, approachable person. I did want to mention one of my strengths that I forgot to mention is with the bond rating for the current position I held was I was part of that with the Standard & Poor's, and I was part of it. We went from a AA- to an AA, so that was a huge accomplishment that I was part of. And just pretty much just being a team player and following Mass General Law and trying to just keep everything together. And some questions for you. I was going to ask how soon that you would be filling this position.
Probably, we should be within the week coming to point of offering someone the job.
Okay.
We have a temp agency working right now, so it's not a super rush, but we'd rather get somebody in sooner rather than later.
Okay. And the hours, is it a 40-hour week? Is it salaried? I mean, I assume it's a salary, but the hours, what are the hours?
I don't even know Matt, what are the office hours down there? They follow the same town hall we
Yes,
The hours for our treasurer collector are roughly. It's open to the public. Well, when we are open to the public, it's 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. But usually our treasurer collector is there from 8:30 to 5.
Okay. And that's
And
Monday through Friday?
Monday through Thursday.
Oh, Thursday. And Friday is a half day?
Friday is off.
Oh, okay. Okay.
4-day work week.
Okay. All right. And in regards to the COVID, is everybody in office, and you're not open to the public at this point, I don't believe.
We're open by appointment, and typically our treasurer collector is, the busiest office.
Oh, yes, yes. You have to be there.
That is getting the most appointments, correct. So there's 2 other staff members in the office as well.
Okay.
That office does have a service window at it as well. So.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's pretty much it. I guess I could touch base about the benefits that you offer for the town, if anybody has that information.
Not the details, but we do provide certain standard benefits. Healthcare is an option. There's a percent funded by the town as well. So
Yeah.
it's,
I was just curious if you knew the split that they had.
not offhand. I don't recall our last agreement for that.
Okay.
We would have to look that up. That's something we could, assuming we get to a point of offering one of
Yeah,
the.
no, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
And
I'd ask you
that's all the
one more
questions I have.
question.
Yep. Oh, sure.
I'd just touch base on education quickly. Education you have listed nursing. Did you get a degree in nursing? Or
I did not. I had 2 years into college, and then I had a child and got married. So I pursued my career differently.
The kids will do that to you.
Oh my goodness. And then I had 3 more. I don't know what I was thinking.
Well, I can't talk about crazy people with 4 kids because I'm one of them.
Work keeps me sane.
All right. Well, we're a little ahead of schedule, but we'll let you go. That'll give us a few minutes to deliberate. As I said, I think we'll be reaching a decision within the week and letting everybody know. And we want to fill the position sooner rather than later. So the sooner we decide, the sooner we can get someone's availability lined up and we can get the office filled. But thank you for being with us this evening. And,
Thank you very much. And I apologize for the video not working. I'm not sure what happened.
It happens on here. It's not just you.
Okay.
Thank you much.
Well, it was very nice to speak with all of you and meet you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, so we still have a few minutes then. That went very quickly. You guys want to talk about these a little bit?
I'm pretty impressed by the last 2. I think they both would provide I think they both would be very good options depending on where we lead. I'm not thinking poorly about Ruben, but I don't think he really brings in municipal experience and the understanding of the municipal. Sounds like he could learn it quick, but we've already got 2 of the 3 that seem to already have it, or at least that basic knowledge. So, for me, I'm currently I've narrowed myself down to 2 at the moment.
As do I agree. I was much more impressed with the last 2 candidates. I haven't really totaled my scores up. They're not going to be that dissimilar, I don't think.
I would say that the first one, I think, actually brings more to the table when it comes to the understanding of investing our savings. He seemed to have a lot of more understanding in that side of it when it comes to pensions and other things. But it's not what I would say is the most important part of our treasurer collector position. The collections and the accounting and all of that is a little bit, that's the number 1 priority. So it's I was hoping that investment part would be something that came with someone else that was just like a nice bonus. I know a lot of municipalities, and I think we do too, we use a lot of consultants to help us with that. So we're not hurting because the treasurer collector doesn't necessarily bring that to the table themselves.
Yeah, I'd like to also say that I was very impressed by the second two candidates. I've definitely narrowed my list from 3 to 2. They both have a lot that they would bring to the table. I think, were we planning on doing a second round of interviews?
Hadn't planned on it. Depends how our discussion goes here. I mean, I don't want to delay too long, but we're back to the same basic thing here. We have 2 candidates that I think both presented well. They both scored well on my lists. Some of the important things about why they want to be here in their career goals, it's very important that both, this is their career goal, to be a treasurer and stay in this position. You know, one's done this position, but once again, without the education to support it, which always makes me a little gun shy. You know, doing it now, when we talk about mass general laws, they both seem to have the right answers, that, you know, you got to follow the laws, and now that you get familiar with them, you really have to look them up. They both sort of alluded to that, looking them up when you get down to a certain situation. Alex does have his degree in management, so it's, I'd have to look again. I don't recall if he was the one that leaned towards accounting, banking and stuff in his degree. I don't recall offhand. I scored him a little higher, about 5 or 6% higher overall than I scored Lisa. But, you know, that's not much. That's distinctly higher than I scored. I don't have any dislikes in either candidate, but once again, it goes back to the education, and that just it makes me nervous. There is something to be said for formal education. You know, same thing when we came down to offering our administrator the job. That education makes, I think, a big difference sometimes in the knowledge of, you know, the book learned, as you'd say, in these things. That you can learn a lot in the field doing a lot of things, but this isn't like we're you know, picking someone that's going to choreograph something, put together a group or committee, or build something for us. This is a technical job, following legality and keeping the books. And obviously, she's doing the job and doing a similar sized town. But I lean towards Alex because of the education. I scored him a little higher, and because of the education, I do lean towards him. I'd like input if you guys have any similar input or thoughts and toss around on it. If you really had to, we could re-interview, but I think we got a good handle on both candidates. They seem very personal. I like some of his answers a little more detailed on the work environment. They both said similar things, working with people, but he seemed to have a better handle on exactly how that happens and how important those relationships are, and how you approach, like, the conflict resolutions, one of the ones that I asked. He was much more specific on how you'd approach each one differently. She kind of said, you approach them kind of the same. And I really don't see that with conflict. I think when you're dealing with a subordinate versus a supervisor in the public, I think there are 3 very different hats to wear there. And he demonstrated that well too. And I think that's a very important part of the position, this position, because dealing with the public, as we know, is that no one likes when they get that bill that they didn't remember or they forgot, and get the demand on it. And, you know, how they deal with us or deal with other people in the office is very important.
Yeah, I found Alexander to be very thoughtful. He seems to be a very methodical person who he seemed very comfortable with the level of knowing what he doesn't know, which I think is really important. And he seemed like he had a good breadth of experiences with managing people and customers, and his energy was really good. I was pretty impressed by him. I think that he would be, if I was to do a ranking right now, I would want to go with Alexander, followed by Lisa. But Lisa, I don't think is very far behind Alexander in my ranking. I thought she had wonderful energy, and 20 years of working with billing and accounting in various forms in a municipality. I think that could be a pretty arguable counterweight to an accounting bachelor's, without knowing too many of the nitty gritty details of that. That's what I would say.
My general opinion on this is I do believe Mr. Haggerty's education is a bit of a benefit. I think they were both correct. You can have a general understanding of mass general law, but there's so much there. You've got to be willing and quickly able to just go look it up just to confirm that you're not skipping a step or missing a date or submitting one form in before you submit the other just because you're getting yourself ahead of yourself. I think some experience helps with that on Lisa's side. Because if you do the same thing each year as the treasurer collector, which she's been since 2017, and Shirley, it's different than being the assistant because you're the one setting the schedule. So her experience, a little bit, I think, is better than his education in that regard. The big experience difference that I noticed, and I'm not saying that it's a big obstacle though, is Lisa's understanding of the Vadar software system we already have. Again, I'm not saying that it's that difficult to figure it out. I haven't used it, so I'm not going to say it is or isn't, but I do know that it's something that's been in our system and we've been using since I've been on the board. And I do know that Andrew was pretty big on it prior to us, him leaving in late January. He was, so I got a feeling it's working well for us. So having someone that knows it and already kind of has contacts and knowledge with the support staff based on what she had discussed, that could be a benefit if there's ever a glitch or an issue or trying to coordinate how to connect one software to another. So I'm really having a hard time with that because when I did my numbers, I just added them all up. I was only 3 points difference between the two. I did have Alex 3 points higher. I really kind of liked Alex's approach when it came to communication, teamwork. But I did notice Ruben and Alex, when it was I think it was question, let's think outside the box question. It was what's the most difficult thing? So Ruben and Alex pretty much focused on the most difficult thing was the, I think it was firing people in personnel. Lisa was the one that said the most difficult thing was dealing with the customer and the tax title, especially when they didn't see it coming or they don't have the funds and how to handle it. I liked Alex's in response to other questions, I think Alex did touch on the whole customer service side. So I didn't see that necessarily as a negative on him, but it made Lisa stand out to me that's a high priority of hers, is to make sure that our residents are a consideration, and when something difficult is going on with taxes, etc., with a resident, that was the hardest on her.
Yeah, that wasn't lost on me either, but at the same time, it gives me a little concern that, doing the job, which is the factual part of the job. You can't let your heartstrings get tugged too hard by the customers. You can do your best to explain it to them. I'm glad that it does give people difficulty. That is a challenge, but I still thought that Alex's answer to the the public, that in a conflict resolution with the public, that you have to really make sure you listen to them, figure out what's going on, try to explain it to them, because we're dealing with rules and laws, and try to help them understand. There's a lot of good in both of them too. When Alex talked about the audit, Lisa's answer was sort of, well, I have a good relationship with my auditors. Well, this will be different auditors, so that good relationship doesn't help her. And going through it may be different here than there. But part, I guess, what I liked what Alex said is, in regards to the audit, Matt, is something we dealt with before and we argued for, is that constant reckoning of the books and getting the books balanced and keeping them current. And he talks about he wants to generate the reports and keep those current. And that's something that I think is really important. Especially when we get to, getting to the end of the year. I really want to start seeing in our reports on the warrants what the balances are in these accounts. So, because we really don't know, we're trusting the department heads to keep it within their budget. But we really need to have a handle on that to see that number. So between the treasurer and between the account, we need to start keeping track of those department numbers, especially in the last quarter of the year. It sounds like something you'd be on track with keeping up.
I just want to let you know that Fred is on the line.
You gentlemen want to make a motion to this point? Or do you want to save this and talk about it some more Monday? Think about it till Monday and discuss it then? That's what I recommend. If you want to make a motion.
I would ask to table this till Monday.
I'm glad we had a few minutes to kick around some ideas, because it's all something we want to think about till then. And we could bring Fred up. We'll move on.
Are we starting this with a motion to go into executive session?
I think that would be appropriate, because Jessica's indicated she wants to negotiate further. That's going to take place in executive session. Make sure we have Fred on. We can get out of here, go to executive.
Right, I'm on.
Okay. All right, so we look for a motion for executive session, possibly to come out and make an announcement. If not, we will come out to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion that we move into executive session per Mass General Law 30A, Section 21A, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, in this case, Jessica Sizer.
I second that motion. Just wanted to clarify again, Greg, are you suggesting that we may want to come out into open and possibly make a statement, or just adjourn the meeting when we're done?
I was thinking we might come out and make a statement, but if it's...
Okay.
Does that make a complication, you think?
No, I just wanted to make sure the motion called for that. So I would modify the motion that we would go into executive session, and when exiting executive session, we will go back into open session and continue normal business.
Would you like to second that, Dylan?
Yeah, I will second that.
All right, I'll have a motion a second to go to executive session. All those in favor, roll call vote, please, gentlemen.
Matt Urban, yes.
Dylan Clark, yes.
Greg O'Sullivan, yes. So,